Indonesia has captured the head of Southeast Asian militant group Jemaah Islamiyah, dealing a major blow to a group blamed for a string of deadly bombings. The man, who was caught in central Java, was named as Zarkasi, also known as Mabah. The announcement came just 2 days after police said they had caught the country's most wanted militant, Abu Dujana, who holds a military wing of JI. Dujana had recently replaced Nordin Top, a Malaysian national considered a mastermind behind a series of bomb attacks, as Indonesia's most wanted fugitive. Police are hoping the latest arrest will speed up the capture of other suspects in the 2002 and 2005 Bali bombings. Hamas seized full control of the Gaza Strip this morning after days of furious gun battles. The militant group granted amnesty to its Fatah rivals, but didn't stop crowds from looting Fatah strongholds, and 2 Fatah supporters were killed in revenge attacks. Hours earlier, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas sacked the unity government of Hamas and his Fatah group and declared a state of emergency. Finance Minister Salam Fayyad, an independent, tonight was chosen as the new Palestinian Prime Minister. Hamas's success has thrown into turmoil everything from the Middle East peace process to the Palestinians' relations with Israel and the West. James Lagilia reports.
There's a new reality in the Middle East, a de facto Palestinian state in Gaza controlled by Hamas. Hamas consolidated its grip after it overran 2 of Fatah's most important security installations, the Preventative Security and Intelligence Headquarters and the Intelligence Services Building, blowing up one of them. Earlier today, Hamas militants dealt the final blow when they arrived at the presidential compound. Like the other 2 buildings, they planted their flag and confiscated anything that wasn't nailed down. As events unfolded, Palestinian Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh of Hamas made light of his dismissal by Palestinian President and Fatah leader Mahmoud Abbas. Mr. President took hasty decisions, he said. Haniyeh also vowed that Hamas's seizure of Gaza would not mean a separate Palestinian state there. The existing government will carry out its duties and tasks in the best possible way, he said, and will not give up on its national and ethical responsibilities towards the Palestinian people. Despite Haniyeh's promises, the fighting is a major blow, if not a death knell, to Palestinian unity and the peace process. With Hamas now in control of Gaza, there's fear in some circles the territory could evolve into a terrorist state right on Israel's doorstep, with everybody from Al-Qaeda to Islamic Jihad operating there. And with the split, there's now talk that the West may resume aid to the Palestinians, but only to the Fatah-controlled West Bank. James Lagilia, TVB News.
President Hu Jintao and other national leaders have ordered an investigation into reports of the widespread use of slave labor in rural China. This comes after police freed more than 400 slaves, including young children, in raids on brick factories and coal mines in Shanxi and Henan provinces. Many were abducted from the streets and sold into servitude. Officials believe there could be hundreds still in captivity. Caroline Chan reports.
The freed slaves showed signs of abuse from repeated beatings, malnutrition, and being forced to work long hours in dangerous conditions. Some were lured to the brick factories and coal mines in Shanxi and Henan provinces with promises of employment and high wages. Others were abducted from bus and train stations and sold for as little as 300 yuan. This freed worker said they were constantly under surveillance, and if anyone tried to escape, their keepers would go after them. 35,000 police led the raids on 7,500 privately owned kilns. As many as 120 suspects have been detained. Still, the numbers of slaves working in these factories are unknown. Some 400 slaves, including children as young as 8, have been rescued, but authorities believe the numbers could total more than 1,000. Parents looked at footage of the factories hoping to find their children. In this case, the mother recognizes her son and the 2 are reunited. But cases like this are rare. The police raids came after a group of 400 fathers from Henan province banded together to find their missing sons, petitioning the government to put in more resources to rescue their children. Caroline Chan, TVB News.
A mainland man has been sentenced to 2.5 years in jail for abandoning 2 autistic boys in Hong Kong. Wu Baiqing was pleaded guilty at the district court today to charges of aiding in abandonment by a person in charge of the children. Jenny Lam reports.
The defendant, a 49-year-old man from Shanwei, was brought for sentencing this morning. The district court heard how Wu Baiqing came to Hong Kong in January with his cousin and his cousin's two autistic boys, aged 15 and 5 years old. He urged his cousin to leave the children at a shopping mall in Wong Tai Sin in the hope that they would be taken care of by kind people. He accepted 700 yuan from his cousin for the arrangement. The children, who were unable to speak, were left with no identification documents, food or water. The defendant was arrested at Lo Wu in February on a subsequent trip. He told the court that his cousin was unable to care for the children. Wu pleaded guilty to aiding, abetting, counselling or procuring abandonment by a person in charge of a child. In sentencing, Judge Chua Phi Lan said Wu caused unnecessary pain and suffering to the boys. She added that Hong Kong society cares for the unfortunate, but the defendant put a great burden on local welfare services by bringing the children here and then expecting they would be cared for by the SAR government. The two boys are now charges of the Social Welfare Department, and police and immigration officials are trying to contact their parents. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Back locally, a final farewell today for fireman Wong Kah-hei. He died fighting a factory fire in Chun Wan last month. Today, colleagues, friends and family paid tribute to Wong before he was laid to rest at Gallant Garden, a cemetery dedicated to those who have died in the service of Hong Kong. Jenny Lam reports.
The Hong Kong flag was draped over the coffin. His helmet was laid on top as a reminder of how he died in the line of duty. 6 firemen who trained with Wong Kah-hei were the pallbearers, and so began the final journey of a young man who gave his life to protect others. The hearse visited the factory building in Chun Wan, where Wong died last month battling a fire. His family burned incense to rest his soul. There was also a tribute to Wong and a march past at the fire station where he served. His colleagues, some of whom fought the same fire with him during his final hours, choked back tears as they bade farewell. His family, bearing his portrait, looked on as Wong received a final salute. Three short and one long ring of the alarm at the fire station sounded the end of his very last shift. 27-year-old Wong Kah-hei served as a fireman for 8 years. A moment's silence was held at Gallant Garden. The flag of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, which had draped over the coffin, was then handed to Wong's family before he was finally laid to rest. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
The San Antonio Spurs are NBA champions. The Spurs now have 4 NBA titles in 9 years, joining the Celtics, the Lakers, and the Bulls as the only teams to win 4. San Antonio beat LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers 83-82 in Game 4 to complete the series sweep. Frenchman Tony Parker became the first European-born player to win the NBA Finals MVP award. And finally, the weather. Sunny periods tomorrow with a maximum temperature of 30 degrees. The outlook, mainly fine and hot.